Hello, welcome to this game review. We'll have a look at a lot of missed opportunities. So it started as e45, we have the Italian, knight f6, and d4. So this is the kind of Scotch gambit type of thing. Black has to take it basically. White plays e5, this is the point. And black basically has to play d5. Knight e4 is also possible. And after this, bishop e5, knight e4. This is kind of the starting position of the line. Well, basically this position, this is where black has some choice, bishop c5 or bishop e7. So this is usually forced, knight e4 or knight d7 has to be played. Knight g4 is not really possible, this doesn't really attack the pawn on e5 because this one is pinned. White played castles, which is a good move. h3 is also possible. This immediately gets a big advantage because white can take on h6 and then take on d4 with something. And this has ruined the kingside structure, so black's king will be really unsafe on the king side. White has very quick development with long castling and knight c3, and white should be quite a bit better. But castling is also fine. Black plays bishop e7, and now h3. Black answers a6. So getting attacked and answering with an attack is often possible, but not here. This is not possible. White can now simply win a piece by taking on c6 with check, and then taking the knight. So this should be quite doable for white. This out of all the candidate moves here, this is the only check. And while this knight is attacked, our bishop here went there to basically take the knight anyway, so there's no reason not to take the free piece. So white plays knight d4, which is a huge blunder, after which now black will be a pawn ahead. After, for example, a takes b, white can, for example, double the pawns here and take this. But black is better here because he has the two bishops, he also has better development. And after h5, all of the pieces for black are developed. He can use the h-file for himself. And this rook can go to the a4 frank. For example, after this, rook a4 is a very nice move to put it on h4, doubling on the h-file after taking the pawn, and black is winning. So instead, knight takes c5 happens, which is also fine. Now black is a pawn ahead for nothing. So this was a huge mistake by white. Again, it's not clear why this happened. Now black is better, bishop a4, b5. Here bishop b3 was played. So after taking on d4, black has relieved the tension here. He should have probably moved the knight to not lose the pawn. But after this, there is a fork now, so white should be kind of fine because he will get the pawn back. So bishop f6, the queens get exchange, rook b8. Now white should develop the pieces which are not developed, which is this knight, this bishop. For example, knight c3, maybe bishop f4. He plays rook e1, which is fine, but the rook was kind of developed anyway. Castles, bishop f4, developing with tempo is usually good. Black plays rook e8, and here white should just finish development with knight c3. And white is a little bit better because black is in a variety of pins. This knight can't move because of the rook on e8 and also the pawn on c7. If the pawn drops, this rook will be lost and trapped. Knight e4 to c5 is an idea, also knight e4 to just take the bishop on f6 is an idea. So white is a little bit better. But white instead takes on e5, which is a very, very big mistake positionally. Giving up the bishop for a knight, which is also pinned and cannot move, is unacceptable. We cannot give up the knights for bishops for no reason. If we're doing this, we should have a very good reason for why we're doing it. And here there was no reason because this knight couldn't move, which means white can take it at any point. And here this isn't the best moment to take it. So black takes back. And now black is better because he has the bishop pair. He has the uncontested bishop on f6, which is also looking at this strong diagonal. So black develops. This bishop is not hanging because of mate, but black is still better. He can develop the bishop to f5. This also stops any piece from going to e4, attacks the pawn on c2, and black is quite a bit better due to his better bishops. and bishop b7. This is a mistake because now black will not have the bishop pair anymore. He is trading off the bishop, and the position is about equal. Here, of course, black should take back, because here the other candidate move of rook e1 is a horrible blunder, because after this the bishop cannot be taken due to the back rank checkmate. So this is an inexplicable blunder by black. There was no reason to take here, the rook was defended, but now white is completely winning because he is a piece up for nothing. Well, black takes one pawn, and here white plays rook e7. He should just move the bishop somewhere, or maybe take a pawn. The weakness is probably on f7, and with rook e7 coming next, white should win quite easily. But rook e7 is played. Now bishop c3 attacks the knight, and it seems white just simply doesn't see that the knight was attacked. The knight should of course move, with tempo maybe to e4. Anywhere with the knight is fine, as long as the knight moves, but white simply ignores it, so I'm not sure how this happened. There is no other reason for bishop c3 apart from attacking the knight. After this, the position is about equal. The material is equal. White is somewhat better because he can pick off a pawn, but in opposite colored bishops, a pawn doesn't really matter much. Black should try to develop his king, not get skewered on this diagonal. Instead, bishop a5 happens, and here white is winning, but only if he finds some good moves. For example, rook c5, this would win a second pawn, because the pawn is pinned, or rook d7, with similar ideas of rook d5 next, but rook c5 simply makes more sense. But white plays rook b7, which is a big blunder, because this allows a rook exchange, and in opposite colored bishop endgames, without any other pieces, a pawn or even two pawns may not have any impact on the position, because black will blockade on dark squares, and white will not be able to make progress in this position. Instead, rook e8 was played. Black for some reason rejects the exchange. White picks off the pawn. He should probably leave the rook on the 7th rank and then attack f7. Instead, this happens. Check, king h2. Black checks again, but this doesn't do anything. g3 and rook a1. But here black is again losing because of back rank issues, and if he plays rook b7 or rook c5 is in the game, black is in a lot of trouble because of this check, and the bishop is now passive. After bishop c4, not only is the pawn defended nicely, but f7 should drop very soon. Rook c1, bishop b3, very nice. And from here white converts quite simply by pushing some pawns, but he should just go rook c7 and pick off the pawn on f7, and this would end the game on the spot. But a4 is fine, g6, rook a8. So white is trying to promote his pawn, but again there is no rush, the pawn will promote itself anyway. White can pick off more pawns. But rook a8, king g7, king f3, and this is good enough. Now eventually white finds the pawn on f7, and here he ends with checkmate, rook g4, and soon g5 and rook h7. So white could have played in a variety of ways here. He chose this one, which is fine, but probably white should try to learn from the blunders he made earlier, especially here, where instead of winning a piece, he ended up being a pawn down.